The void between stars held secrets, but Captain Sarah Chen had never expected to find one quite like this. The TSS Artemis hung silently in space, its quantum sensors painting an impossible picture of the battle unfolding before them. 3 crystalline vessels, their delicate structures suggesting an advanced civilization, fled from a pack of crude but powerful warships that looked cobbled together from salvaged metal and stolen technology. Analysis confirms it, Captain. Lieutenant Park reported from his science station, dark eyes fixed on the holographic display floating before him. The crystalline ships match no known configuration in our database, but their energy signatures suggest they're running on pure quantum harmonics. Whoever built them is far beyond most spacefaring races we've encountered. Sarah watched the pursuit through the bridge's panoramic viewport, her expression carefully neutral despite the growing tension in her chest. The Artemis had been mapping this sector when they detected the weapons fire, and first contact protocols were clear: observe and report, unless lives were clearly in danger. Based on the energy readings from those crude warships' weapons, lives were very much in danger. "What of our friends in pursuit?" she asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Raiders," Commander Elena Rodriguez, her first officer, confirmed with disgust evident in her voice. "Energy signatures are chaotic. Weapon systems are a mix of at least 4 different technological bases. They're using brute force to compensate for inferior technology." The raiders' ships were gaining on their prey, their weapons already beginning to strain the crystalline vessel's shields. Sarah had seen enough. "Sound battle stations, but keep our technological profile minimal. Let's not show all our cards at once." The Artemis crew moved with practiced efficiency as alert lights pulsed silently throughout the ship. On the surface, the Artemis appeared to be a modest vessel of mid-level technology. Its hull was smooth and unremarkable, its visible weapons few and conventional. This was precisely how Sarah and her crew wanted to be seen. "Raiders are launching another barrage," Tactical Officer Lieutenant Commander James Chen reported. No relation to Sarah, though they shared the same surname. "Crystalline vessels' shields are failing. They're broadcasting some kind of distress signal. Universal mathematics, Captain. They're trying to communicate." Sarah stood from her command chair. Decision made. "Plot and intercept course. Comms broadcast on all frequencies in mathematical sequence. We acknowledge their distress call and are moving to assist." The Artemis's engines flared to life, pushing the ship smoothly into an intercept vector. The raiders, focused on their prey, didn't immediately notice the new arrival. When they did, their reaction was telling. "They're scanning us," Park reported. "Basic electromagnetic sweep. They're seeing exactly what we want them to see. Their attack formation is shifting. Looks like they think we're easy prey too." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "That's their first mistake. Elena, defensive pattern delta. James, target their weapons arrays only. Let's give them a chance to reconsider their life choices." The Artemis moved with unexpected grace for its apparent size, sliding between the raiders and their crystalline quarry. The raiders, perhaps emboldened by their superior numbers, opened fire immediately. "Shields holding at 98%, Rodriguez reported calmly. "Their weapons are powerful, but unrefined. No real coordination in their attack pattern." "Return fire," Sarah ordered. "Show them what inferior technology can do." The Artemis response was precise and measured. Beams of concentrated energy lanced out from its modest weapon ports, striking the raiders' weapons arrays with surgical accuracy. 2 of the attacking ships immediately lost weapons power, their hastily assembled systems proving no match for even the most basic human military technology. "Captain," Park called out, excitement creeping into his voice, "I'm detecting power surges in the remaining raiders' engines. They're getting ready to run." "Let them," Sarah replied. "But first, broadcast this. This sector is now under human protection. Spread the word. The next raiders we catch won't get off so easily." The remaining raiders didn't wait to acknowledge the message, their ships turning awkwardly before vanishing into FTL travel. Sarah turned her attention to the crystalline vessels they'd just saved. The alien ships were beautiful up close, their crystalline structures somehow both delicate and resilient. "They're broadcasting again," Communications Officer Lieutenant Hannah Walsh reported. "Still mathematics. But, Captain, this is incredible. They're sending us engineering diagrams, quantum equations. I think they're trying to show us they understand how our weapons really work." Sarah raised an eyebrow. These aliens were more perceptive than she'd expected. The Artemis's visible weapons were intentionally designed to look like standard particle beam technology, but they actually operated on principles of quantum field manipulation. Few species they'd encountered had been able to discern the difference. "Interesting," she mused. "Send them our first contact package. Let's see how they respond to." "Captain," Park's urgent voice cut through her words. "New contacts. Multiple signatures. Massive energy readings." The raiders weren't running. They were calling for help. Space seemed to tear open as 6 new ships emerged from FTL, each one dwarfing the raiders they'd driven off. These weren't cobbled-together attack craft. These were capital ships, their hulls bearing the distinctive mark of the hegemony, a militant empire that had been expanding aggressively through this part of space. "Well," Sarah said quietly, "I believe we've just discovered who's been sponsoring our raider friends." She sat back in her command chair, mind racing through options. The Artemis could probably handle these ships, but doing so would reveal capabilities they'd been keeping hidden for good reason. The crystalline ships were moving closer to the Artemis, clearly seeking protection. The hegemony vessels were advancing in an attack formation that spoke of professional military training. "Captain," Walsh called out, "we're being hailed. The hegemony ships are demanding our immediate surrender. They're claiming we interfered with a legitimate military exercise." Sarah looked at the tactical display, then at her crew. Each face showed the same determination she felt. They'd known a day like this might come, when humanity would have to choose between maintaining their technological deception and standing up for what was right. "Send them our response," she said firmly. "Tell them the TSS Artemis formally declines their offer of surrender. And Alina." She turned to her first officer with a slight smile. "Power up the quantum core. It's time to show them what humanity can really do." The Artemis's hull began to shimmer as systems that had lain dormant came to life. The real fight was about to begin. And with it, humanity's quiet exploration of the galaxy was about to become very, very loud. The hegemony ships opened fire first, their weapons blazing across space with enough power to shatter a small moon. To their visible surprise, their attacks seemed to pass straight through the Artemis, the ship's image flickering like a mirage. "Quantum displacement field holding steady," Rodriguez reported, her fingers dancing across her console. "They're seeing our echo. Primary systems are now at full power." The Artemis's true form began to emerge as its sophisticated camouflage systems deactivated. The smooth, unremarkable hull flowed like liquid metal, revealing layers of advanced technology that had been perfectly hidden. Weapon ports that hadn't existed moments before appeared along its length, each housing armaments that operated on principles most species hadn't even theorized yet. "Their flagship is hailing us again," Walsh announced. "They seem confused." "Put them through," Sarah ordered, standing from her chair. A harsh voice filled the bridge. "What trickery is this? Your vessel's energy signature has increased tenfold. Explain yourselves." "No trickery," Sarah replied calmly. "Just human ingenuity. You're seeing the TSS Artemis as she really is. I suggest you reconsider your attack." The response came in the form of another barrage, this time concentrated enough to have vaporized their apparent form from moments ago. The Artemis's quantum shields absorbed the energy, its hull glowing with captured power. "They're launching fighters," James reported. "Lots of them. Detecting missile salvos as well." Sarah nodded. "Time to show them why humanity doesn't fear superior numbers. Deploy the drone swarm." The Artemis's hull rippled again as thousands of tiny objects emerged from previously invisible bays. Each one was smaller than a human fist, but together they formed a cloud of autonomous defenders that moved with perfect coordination. "Drone swarm engaging fighters," James announced with professional satisfaction. "Quantum-linked targeting systems online. Clean intercepts only. No casualties." The space around the Artemis erupted in a dance of light as the drone swarm met the hegemony fighters. The tiny human drones didn't destroy their targets. Instead, they attached themselves to key systems, using targeted electromagnetic pulses to disable engines and weapons while leaving life support untouched. On the bridge's main display, fighter after fighter went dark, their pilots unharmed but powerless to continue the attack. The missile salvos met a similar fate, each one intercepted and safely detonated well away from any ships. "Captain," Park called out urgently, "the crystalline ships, they're not just watching. They're adapting. Their shield configurations are shifting to match our quantum field harmonics." Sarah raised an eyebrow, impressed. "They really can analyze and understand technology just by observing it." Fascinating. The hegemony capital ships were regrouping, their initial surprise giving way to focused determination. Their next attack pattern was more coordinated, bringing all 6 ships' main weapons to bear simultaneously. "They're trying to overwhelm our quantum shields with synchronized fire," Rodriguez observed. "Creative, but they don't understand what they're really attacking." Sarah finished. "James, initiate countermeasure protocol Echo. Let's show them why attempting to overpower a human quantum field is a very, very bad idea." As the hegemony's combined barrage approached, the Artemis's quantum shields began to pulse with a strange rhythm. Instead of trying to block or absorb the incoming energy, they created a complex series of interference patterns. "Quantum field resonance established," Rodriguez reported. "Ready for energy redirection." The massive energy attack struck the Artemis's shields and bounced, not back at the attackers, but into a controlled cascade of quantum reactions that spread between the hegemony ships like a web of light. Their own energy weapons had become the conductors for a quantum field that now enveloped their entire fleet. "Field containment stable," Rodriguez confirmed. "They're trapped in their own attack pattern." "Broadcast on all frequencies," Sarah ordered. "Hegemony vessels, your ships are now contained within a quantum stasis field powered by your own weapons. You can't escape, you can't fight, and you can't call for help. However, you can still surrender." The bridge fell silent as they waited for a response. The crystalline ships had moved closer, their own systems humming with newly adapted quantum harmonics. Finally, the hegemony commander's voice returned, noticeably less confident. You planned this. The raiders, the crystalline ships. This was a trap." Sarah shook her head, though the enemy couldn't see it. "No, Commander. This was a test, one you failed spectacularly. We came to help those in need, while you came to bully those you thought weaker than you. Humanity has been watching the hegemony's expansion with growing concern. Consider this a demonstration of why that expansion stops here. The hegemony will not forget this," the commander growled. "You have no idea what forces you're—" "Oh, I think we do," Sarah interrupted. "Walsh, send them the full data package." A moment later, the hegemony ship's computers received detailed scans of their own fleet's movements over the past 6 months. Supply lines, staging areas, fleet compositions, everything the Artemis and other human ships had been quietly observing while maintaining their technological masquerade. "That's impossible," the commander whispered. "You couldn't have gathered this intelligence. Our stealth systems are impressive," Sarah acknowledged, "to most species. But humanity learned long ago that the best way to understand potential threats was to let them think they had the advantage. We've been watching, Commander. We've been learning. And we've been preparing." The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Finally, the commander spoke again, his voice carefully controlled. "What are your terms?" Sarah smiled slightly. "Simple. The hegemony will halt all military expansion immediately. You will withdraw from the territories you've seized in the past year, and you will establish diplomatic relations with both humanity and—" She glanced at the crystalline ships. "Our new friends here. Do you accept?" The commander's response was barely audible. "We accept." "Excellent choice. Walsh, inform Earth Command that Phase 1 is complete. I believe they'll want to begin diplomatic proceedings immediately." She turned to her science officer. "Park, what's the status of our crystalline guests?" "They're requesting permission to dock, Captain. Their quantum field adaptations are remarkable. They've already figured out how to harmonize their systems with ours perfectly." Sarah nodded. "Grant them access to Docking Bay 3. I believe we have much to learn from each other." She sat back in her command chair, watching as the hegemony ships powered down their weapons. "And Commander Rodriguez, make sure our friends understand that while humanity prefers peace, we are always prepared for the alternative." The Artemis quantum field pulsed once more, releasing the hegemony ships from their containment. As the massive vessels retreated, their once proud formation now hesitant and wary, Sarah reflected on how quickly everything had changed. Humanity's quiet observation of the galaxy was over, but perhaps that wasn't a bad thing. Sometimes the best way to keep the peace was to demonstrate exactly why starting a war would be a very poor decision. 3 hours later, Sarah stood in the Artemis' primary conference room, studying the beings before her. The crystalline ship's crew had indeed requested docking permission, and now their representatives sat across the table. Though "sat" wasn't quite the right word. They were vaguely humanoid in shape, but their bodies seemed to be composed of living crystal that flowed and shifted like liquid glass. When they moved, light danced through their translucent forms in complex patterns that Walsh's universal translator was beginning to recognize as a form of communication. "We are the Lumini," the translator rendered their light speech into words. "We have watched many species, but never have we seen technology wielded with such elegance." Sarah nodded respectfully. "We're honored by your praise, but from what we've observed, your ability to adapt and integrate new technological concepts is remarkable." The Lumini's crystalline forms shimmered with what the translator interpreted as amusement. "We learn. We adapt. But you understand. The quantum fields you wield, they are not tools to you. They are an art form." Before Sarah could respond, Walsh's voice came through the ship's comm system. "Captain, priority message from Earth Command. The hegemony. They're not honoring the terms." Sarah's expression hardened. "Explain." "Long-range quantum sensors are detecting massive fleet movements. They're not retreating from occupied territories. They're fortifying them. And, sir, they're deploying something new. Energy signatures unlike anything we've seen from them before." The Lumini representatives shifted, their crystal bodies refracting light in patterns of concern. "They have accessed the sealed vaults," one of them said, the translator struggling to convey the gravity in their light speech. "In the territories they occupied, there were things left behind. Things we thought safe from discovery." "Left behind by whom?" Sarah asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. "By us." The Lumini's pattern speech grew more complex. "Eons ago, when we chose to transcend traditional physical forms, we sealed away our most dangerous military technologies. The hegemony must have found one of our vaults. They cannot possibly understand what they're tampering with." The ship's comm system crackled again. "Captain, new report from the quantum sensor network. The hegemony is broadcasting on all frequencies. They're demanding the immediate surrender of all non-hegemony worlds in this sector. They claim to have discovered weapons of the ancients that make them invincible." Sarah exchanged looks with the Lumini representatives. "How bad is this? What exactly might they have found?" The crystalline being's forms swirled with patterns that the translator interpreted as deep concern. Among the sealed technologies were devices we called world shapers. They could restructure matter at the quantum level, turn entire planets into weapons. In our war-filled past, we nearly destroyed ourselves with them. That's why we chose to evolve beyond the need for such weapons. Captain, Park's voice joined the conversation. Long-range sensors are showing. Something's happening to the hegemony fleet. Their ships, they're changing, growing. The metal itself seems to be evolving. The Lumini's patterns became urgent. They've activated a world shaper, but they don't understand it. The quantum restructuring will cascade out of control. They could trigger a chain reaction that would devastate this entire sector of space. Sarah's mind raced through options. The Artemis was advanced, but this was beyond anything they'd prepared for. And yet, maybe that was the answer. They hadn't prepared for this specific scenario, but humans had always excelled at adapting existing tools in creative ways. The quantum fields we use, she said slowly, turning to the Lumini. They don't just redirect energy. At their core, they manipulate the fundamental forces that shape reality. If we could understand how these world shapers work, the crystalline being's patterns shifted to something the translator couldn't quite capture, a mixture of hope and fear. Yes, yes. Your quantum manipulation technology. It operates on similar principles to our ancient devices, but with far more finesse. If we could combine our knowledge. Walsh, get me Earth command. Rodriguez, begin power-up sequences for all quantum field generators, even the experimental ones. Park, I want every sensor we have focused on studying those hegemony ships. And send word to any human vessels in range. We're going to need help. She turned back to the Lumini. I need everything you can tell me about world shapers, and I need it fast. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to take existing tools and use them in ways nobody ever imagined. The hegemony thinks they've found some ancient superweapon. What they've really done is give us an opportunity to show them what real innovation looks like. The Lumini representatives shifted their crystalline forms in what seemed to be agreement. As they began sharing their knowledge of the ancient devices, Sarah could feel the weight of the moment. The next few hours would determine not just the fate of this sector, but possibly the course of galactic history. The hegemony had started this by refusing to honor a simple surrender. They were about to learn that humanity didn't just build impressive technology. They mastered it in ways that its original creators never imagined. The next 12 hours aboard the Artemis were a blur of activity. The Lumini shared their knowledge of world shaper technology through direct quantum interfaces, their crystalline forms linking with the ship's computers to transfer vast amounts of technical data. Meanwhile, the hegemony fleet continued to grow more monstrous by the hour. Their ships are becoming something entirely new, Park reported, his voice tense as he studied the sensor readings. The world shaper isn't just modifying their vessels, it's rewriting the fundamental structure of matter itself. The metal is becoming some kind of quantum organic hybrid. Sarah watched the tactical display with growing concern. The hegemony ships had transformed into writhing masses of living metal, their forms constantly shifting and growing. More disturbing were the energy readings. The quantum restructuring was spreading beyond the fleet, affecting nearby space itself. They'd lost control of it, one of the Lumini observed, their light patterns sharp with alarm. The cascade effect is beginning. Soon it will spread faster than light itself. Rodriguez looked up from her station. 3 more human ships have arrived in response to our call. The TSS Hyperion, Daedalus, and Phoenix are standing by. Earth Command has authorized full deployment of all experimental systems. Sarah nodded. She'd spent the last hours working with the Lumini to develop a plan that was either brilliant or insane, possibly both. Status of the quantum field modifications. Ready, Rodriguez confirmed. We've integrated the Lumini's world shaper principles with our quantum manipulation technology. But Captain, this is way beyond anything we've tested. We're essentially trying to create a controlled version of the same effect that's causing the problem. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire, Sarah replied. Or in this case, fight quantum chaos with quantum control. Park, status of the drone swarm. Reprogrammed according to specifications. Each drone's quantum field generator has been modified with the new protocols. They're ready for synchronized deployment. Sarah turned to the Lumini representatives. Your people built the world shapers to restructure matter. We've modified our quantum fields to do something similar, but with a crucial difference. Instead of forcing matter to change, we're going to give it a choice. The Lumini's patterns shifted in what seemed to be confusion. Matter doesn't choose, doesn't it? Sarah smiled slightly. Quantum mechanics tells us that particles exist in multiple states until observed. In a way, they're constantly choosing their state of existence. We're going to use that principle on a massive scale. She stood, addressing her crew and their alien allies. The hegemony is trying to force reality to bend to their will. We're going to remind reality that it has other options. Walsh, open a channel to all human ships. Rodriguez, begin quantum field initialization. The Artemis's hull began to shimmer with a new kind of energy as its modified quantum fields came online. Around it, the 3 other human vessels did the same, their fields synchronizing into a complex pattern. Drone swarm deploying, Park announced. Thousands of tiny drones emerged from all 4 human ships, forming a vast 3-dimensional web around the transformed hegemony fleet. Each drone added its own quantum field to the growing pattern. The cascade is accelerating, Illumini warned. The hegemony ships, they're trying to fire their weapons, but the transformations are too chaotic. They can't control their own systems anymore. Now, Sarah ordered, initialize the quantum choice protocol. The combined quantum fields of 4 human warships and thousands of drones activated simultaneously. But unlike the brutal force of the world shaper, this was something entirely new. The fields created a kind of quantum suggestion, presenting the very fabric of space-time with alternative possibilities. The effect was immediately visible. Where the world shaper's influence had created chaos, the human quantum fields created options. The transformed metal of the hegemony ships began to stabilize, finding new forms that were sustainable rather than catastrophic. It's working, Park reported with amazement. The cascade is slowing, stopping, reversing. The quantum restructuring is following our suggested patterns instead of continuing to spiral out of control. The Lumini's patterns became extremely complex, their amazement evident even without the translator. You're not just stopping the transformation, you're guiding it, teaching it. This is humanity's gift, Sarah said quietly. We don't just use technology. We help it evolve. The world shapers were built to command reality. We've repurposed them to cooperate with it instead. The hegemony ships hung in space, their forms now stabilized into something new. Not the monstrous chaos they had been becoming, but a stable synthesis of organic and mechanical elements. Their weapons had been transformed into energy collection systems, their armor into self-repairing quantum matrices. Incoming transmission from the hegemony flagship, Walsh announced. They're begging for help. The transformations affected their crews. They're alive, but changed. Sarah looked at the Lumini. Your ancestors built weapons to reshape worlds. Together, we just reshaped the future instead. The question is, what do we do with it? 1 month later, the Artemis orbited a transformed world. Below them, what had once been a barren hegemony military base was now a thriving ecosystem of quantum organic structures. The changed hegemony crews, after recovering from their initial panic, had discovered that their new forms gave them unprecedented abilities to interact with and understand technology. The irony, Rodriguez mused, standing beside Sarah at the observation window, is that in trying to seize power, they accidentally transcended their old limitations entirely. Sarah nodded, watching the crystalline structures below pulse with life. The Lumini had taken a special interest in the transformed hegemony citizens, recognizing in their new forms an echo of their own ancient evolution. Latest report from the Joint Research Team, Park announced from his station. The quantum choice protocols we developed have applications far beyond crisis management. The Lumini think we could use them to terraform dead worlds, clean up polluted environments, even heal spatial damage from old wars. And the hegemony? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. The Empire officially dissolved last week, Walsh reported. The transformed military crews are leading the reformation. They're calling for a new cooperative society based on technological harmony rather than dominance. Apparently, having your entire physical form reconstructed by quantum fields gives you a new perspective on life. Sarah smiled slightly. The outcome had been better than anyone could have hoped for. What had started as a potential catastrophe had evolved into something revolutionary. Human creativity, combined with Lumini wisdom, and even the hegemony's desperate gamble, had opened up entirely new possibilities for the future. Captain, Walsh called out, incoming transmission from Earth Command. Priority 1. Put it through to my ready room, Sarah replied. She had a feeling she knew what this was about. Minutes later, she returned to the bridge, her expression thoughtful. It seems, she announced to her crew, that we've been given a new mission. Earth Command is establishing a joint task force with the Lumini and the reformed hegemony worlds. They want the Artemis to lead it. What's the mission, Captain? Rodriguez asked. To explore the implications of what we've created. The quantum choice protocols don't just change matter. They change possibilities. Earth Command thinks we've only scratched the surface of what this technology can do. But more importantly, they want to ensure it's used wisely. She turned to face her crew fully. The task force will have 3 objectives: exploration, innovation, and ethics. We'll be working with scientists and philosophers from all 3 civilizations. The goal isn't just to develop new technologies, but to understand their implications and ensure they benefit all sentient life. The Lumini representative who had remained aboard as their liaison shifted their crystalline form in approval. Your people continue to surprise us, Captain Chen. When we first encountered your ship, we thought we were being rescued by a modest patrol vessel. Instead, we found partners who showed us entirely new ways to think about technology and existence itself. Sarah smiled. That's humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not our technology, not our quantum fields, but our ability to imagine new possibilities. We look at ancient weapons and see tools for creation. We face chaos and see an opportunity for harmony. We meet strange new life forms and see potential friends. She looked out at the transformed world below them. Already, ships from dozens of species were arriving to study and learn from what had happened here. The galaxy was changing, not through force, but through possibility. Walsh, send word to Earth Command. Tell them the Artemis accepts the mission. She sat in her command chair, feeling the familiar hum of the ship's quantum fields. After all, there are still plenty of mysteries out there, still so many possibilities to explore, and now we have new friends to explore them with. The Artemis's engines powered up, its quantum fields shimmering with potential as it prepared to leave orbit. On the transformed world below, new structures were already growing, each one a testament to what could happen when different species chose to work together instead of against each other. Course laid in, Captain, Rodriguez reported. Where to? Sarah looked at her diverse crew, human, Lumini, and even a few transformed hegemony volunteers who had joined them to learn. Each brought their own perspective, their own way of seeing the universe. Together, they were far greater than the sum of their parts. Set course for the unknown, Commander, she said with a smile. After all, that's where the best possibilities always are. The Artemis turned gracefully and accelerated into deeper space, its quantum fields leaving a trail of shimmering possibility in its wake. Behind it, the transformed world served as a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there was always another choice, another way forward. All you had to do was be willing to imagine it. And imagination, as humanity had proven, was the greatest force in the universe.